seek the Lord in your life. Because if you're not seeking the Lord, you're going to spin your wheels for a long time. You might be successful, but if music is the only thing that's in your life, you're missing the point about why we're here.
Don't miss the point of what God has for you. Welcome to First Person, and this week's guest, composer and musician John Campbell, widely respected, among other things, as the creative music producer behind Adventures in Odyssey. I'm Wayne Shepherd, and you'll meet John in just a moment. Through these weekly conversations, you hear men and women who have discovered their life in Christ leads to a calling to serve the Lord and people in powerful ways. There is no end to the variety of people we meet and no end to the creative ways that God gives purpose to their lives. If you would like to hear more than just today's featured guest, we have an archive of many interviews to offer you online at firstpersoninterview.com. Or use our smartphone app to download the programs to your device and take them with you on the go. Just search First Person Interview in your app store for a free download. And one more way to listen is through your favorite podcast portal, starting with iTunes. Through a mutual friend, I met John Campbell a few years ago, although I've admired his creative abilities much longer. John works on many musical projects, but he's well known and admired for his work on the children's program from Focus on the Family.
Adventures in Odyssey started, I'm going to say, over 20 years ago. It just so happened that Steve Harris, who was the creator, him and a guy named Phil Lawler, they created Odyssey together. Steve went to my church. And this is when Focus on the Family was in California, in Arcadia. And Steve got the job for their creative department, And so before Odyssey was ever thought about, I used to go over and write music for some of Focus's small radio dramas. I think it was called Turn Your Heart Toward Home was the name of the series. And anyway, a couple of years later, Steve calls me and says, hey, I've got this idea, and it's centered around a man named Whit, John Avery Whitaker. We call him Whit. And he kind of explained about, all of the ins and outs of the Imagination Station and Whit's End. And he wanted me to write a theme. And I said, hey, that sounds great. So I went and tried a couple of things and gave him to Steve, and he was like, no. It needs to be a little more whimsical, a little more, fantasy. So anyway, I remember where I was at. I was sitting in my dad's studio. My dad was a piano teacher, and I used to have my studio at my parents' home. That was a long time ago. Anyway, and I was sitting at the piano, and I came up with this little ostinato, this da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and I thought, oh, and right away I knew I hit the melody of the Odyssey theme, and I sent it to Steve. He loved it. The Odyssey theme has kind of been set in stone, and a lot of people have enjoyed it, and I've been really blessed and very humbled by the response to that over the years.
A lot of people are hearing that in their head right now, as a matter of fact, John.
Yes.
Well,
and it's still a thrill when somebody, comes back and sings it to me.
Oh, I bet.
I thought, that's kind of fun.
I bet. Okay, well, for the uninitiated, let's point out that when you hear all the music throughout Adventures in Odyssey, that's all custom written. That's not music pulled off a shelf from somewhere. You're given a script, and along with the producers, you decide what the musical moment is, and you write the music for all those things.
That is correct. Yes. Once the actors are recorded, it's taken back to Focus, and they're now in Colorado Springs. But actually, the guys come out here to Los Angeles. I live in California, and the guys come out here to Los Angeles and record in Burbank, and go back. They assemble it. They send me an audio file completed with all the actors, and then they send me a script with music notes, and I put it up in my music program, and I start writing music. And actually, the music, because technology is so good these days, and there's no budget for a live orchestra, it's all digital, and I write every show, and I've been doing that for years.
Well, music technology has changed so much over 20 years. What did it start out being? And we know what it is now. We know how good it sounds now. But where did it start?
Oh, it started out, well, let's take, for example, when I created the Odyssey theme, I went to a friend's house. His name is Marty Acito. Actually, Marty, when I was busy, would write some of the Odyssey shows early on. But he had a little studio, and we had a lot of synthesizers. And we tried to create or emulate an orchestral setting with these synthesizers that didn't sound very good. But listening now to the old theme, it was still pretty classic.
It was electronic sounding, wasn't it?
Very electronic sounding. And then over the years, as the technology got better, things started to gradually sound more realistic with the instruments. Today, the technology is so good, you can't tell whether it's a live production with live players or a digital score.
So on your computer, you have samples of, let's say, a violin and an accordion and even brass.
Absolutely.
You have all,
yeah,
and you can play it on your keyboard.
On my keyboard, I have string sections with all the articulations, brass and woodwinds, all the rhythm instruments, piano, bass, guitar, drums. I've got accordion, as you said. I've got guitars, a lot of world instruments, and they're just at my fingertips. So if a particular show or a scene is a period piece that's somewhere halfway around the world, like in Russia or Germany or Europe, I can pull out instruments that were built or used during that period.
Sure.
And you've got a score.
So tell me you have a bouzouki.
Yes, I do, and a bazooka.
All right.
It's kind of loud. I got to turn my speakers down for that one.
Well, John, when I was in your studio and you were demonstrating this to me, I pulled out my iPhone and began to videotape it. So coming up at the end of our conversation today, I recorded that little video of you creating a piece of music on the spot for me. You just came up with a melody right then and there and all the instrumentation. And so at the end of our conversation, we're going to play a few moments of that. I've lifted some audio from the video. And then at the end of the program, I'll tell listeners where they can go online to watch the entire video. It's about 15 minutes of you from scratch creating a little theme for a radio program, radio drama. So that'll be fun. We'll hear more of that later in our conversation here today. So that's Love Adventures in Odyssey. Tell me some of the other projects you've been involved with recently.
Oh well, obviously Odyssey is just one client, so to speak, and one gig. I have a number of clients, both in secular and the Christian market. Probably the one thing that I've been working on and the most proud of this last year has been writing the music for the ministry Answers in Genesis. They built a life-size ark. And they have a creation museum, and I wrote all the music for their parks, and I'm very proud of that.
So when we go through the museums and the Ark, we're listening to your music in the background.
Absolutely.
Wow. I love that. I love that.
It is fun, and I've gotten a lot of nice compliments for that too.
Huh. I know you've worked with Lamplighter Theater.
Yes.
And other dramatic presentations.
I have, and then on the secular side, I'm a keyboard player, and I've played on a lot of records. Going back, I played on a lot of rock and roll records. I like Chicago, and I've worked with like Eddie Van Halen and Loverboy and a number of bands over the years. But I played in the Maranatha Praise Band. And I've worked with a lot of Christian artists over the years.
Debbie Boone, I know, is in your resume.
Boone. She was my first major artist, and I was her keyboard player and musical director on certain gigs, and I traveled with her for a number of years. Lovely experience.
Mm-hmm. How many lifetimes musically have you lived, John?
Let's see. Well, if a cat has 9 lives, I think I've lived 8 lives. So I've got one more life to live.
And you do this from your home studio. It's in your backyard.
It is in my backyard.
So you have a long commute each day, but you have very busy days. This work keeps you hopping.
It keeps me busy. Yeah. Fortunately, the Lord has blessed what I've done, because I got to tell you, it is the gift that He gave me, and I want to continue to use that. And so I get up every day, and it's my job to write music to the best of my ability for a number of clients. And fortunately, the phone keeps ringing, and I keep working.
Well, again, we're going to demonstrate some of your work at the end of our conversation here today, but listeners can always go online to johncampbellmusic.com, where you've put together samples of many of the things that you've done, and they can get a really good idea there at the website. And I want our listeners to go there, johncampbellmusic.com.
If I'm not writing music, I'm not making a living.
And you're going to hear John write music coming up on this edition of First Person. Stay with us.
I'm Ed Cannon, president of the Far East Broadcasting Company. We've produced a number of storytelling videos of God at work in the lives of FEBC listeners living in difficult circumstances. To see these videos and to be encouraged in God's Word, please visit firstpersoninterview.com and sign up for our 30-day online devotional. It's easy and there's no obligation. You will love seeing and hearing stories of people's lives being saved through the gospel message. Go to firstpersoninterview.com.
My guest is John Campbell. John is a musician, a composer. You may know his name from hearing the credits on Adventures in Odyssey, because John writes all the music. Is 100% of the music for Odyssey, John?
100% of the music. There's a number of composers that have worked on Odyssey over the years, but I've done most of them. And I have been completely blessed. Yeah. This last number of years, I just enjoy writing it so much. So I've been writing them all for this last probably 10 years.
Well, I see why they keep you around. I really do. Now, we've talked about your calling, what you do. Let's talk about who you are, John. Where did this all begin for you musically? I mean, were you one of those child prodigies, I guess I'm asking?
You know, I wouldn't consider myself to be a child prodigy, but my father, as I had mentioned earlier, was a piano teacher. He had a degree in composition. He was the organist at our church. So I grew up in music, and even when I was young, my dad would sit me down and make me practice piano. I played drums. I played trombone. I played a number of instruments. I hated to practice. I would have much rather gone out and played with my friends, but fortunately, my dad kept true to keeping me and giving me the gift that he had, and even as a young child in the summer times, my dad taught piano in the afternoons, but in the morning, we'd have classes. My sister and I would have classes in harmony and theory, and I just took to it. And I got really serious about it in my late teens. I actually, when I was coming out of high school, I actually wanted to be an architect, of all things. I've always loved math, and I've always enjoyed drawing floor plans for homes. And I thought, hey, that would be really great. But my dad, which is not normally the case, was saying, well, what about your music? And I was like, well, okay. But I really had to kind of go back inside myself and think, man, this is a competitive business. Am I really want to do this? But I just felt that urging from the Lord saying, this is what you want to do. And so I moved that way.
And all of this is done as unto the Lord. I mean, you recognize this is the Lord's gifting in your life.
Absolutely. No doubt about it. When I was starting out in my late teens, early 20s, it wasn't that I wasn't a Christian. It just I wasn't serious about it. I was young, in an exciting business, and I just wanted to, make my mark, so to speak, in music. So it wasn't until I got married, had kids, and I was in my 30s where I started getting more serious about my walk. And I can tell you, today, it's my faith and my walk with the Lord is more important to me than anything else, and even music. I've always appreciated those musicians who've had a balance in their life where they can, and especially the Christian composers and musicians, where besides writing or playing great music, they also have a solid family and a solid faith. And for me, balance is key. My family and my kids and my friends and our church, they're as important to me as music is. And, and so I love being part of a body of believers where I'm held accountable for my faith. And then at the same time, I can encourage others. I also get a lot of calls from a lot of young composers. And, we talk music, but we also talk about their lives as well.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that because I know that mentoring is important to you.
Mm-hmm. Yes, very important. I get emails from all sorts of, composers young and old, but a lot of the younger composers, asking, well, how did you get into this? Because it's... Yeah, they're starting to travel that road that I traveled a long time ago.
But isn't it hard in a sense because you have all these decades of experience and they want it now,
Well, yeah.
So what do you say? What do you say?
I tell them, I said, listen, man, there is no formula for success in this. But besides living, eating, and breathing music, also seek the Lord in your life, because if you're not seeking the Lord, you're going to spin your wheels for a long time. You might be successful, but if music is the only thing that's in your life, you're missing the point about why we're here.
Mm-hmm. In your studio, I kind of felt like the Wizard of Oz experience. I parted the curtain, and there was the professor pulling all the buttons and levers, to create all this cacophony.
Right.
It was really quite an experience. And as I said, I got out my iPhone, and as you began to demonstrate at your computer, your bank of computers there. Mm-hmm. I took out the iPhone and I started videoing you as you sat down at the computers and began to compose a piece of music for me. Now, the whole video runs just under 15 minutes, but I have an audio clip now that I'd like to play, and then in a moment I'll explain where anyone listening can view the whole video online. But this whole thing was improvised. I asked you to compose a piece of music for a fictional character who was a pastor and a part-time sheriff living in Rabbit Hash, Wyoming. So let's listen to this. This is just, taken right off the iPhone from the video. John Campbell creating a song from scratch as we talked.
Okay, so first thing I have to do is I have to think, oh, hey, we're in Wyoming, Rabbit Hash, Wyoming. So it would probably be kind of an acoustical thing. So I pulled up a banjo and just an acoustic guitar. Okay, so that's just off the top of my head.
There you go.
Now I've recorded this. So now that I've got this recorded, I'm going to play something on top of it. Now I could, of course, add
back to the banjo.
A little banjo. Let's add that to kind of give it, Okay, so now that a banjo, now this is playing. So really what would be awesome, let's give ourselves a little more expanse with a larger string section. We need a little accordion.
Uh-huh.
That might be a nice a nice feel touch, because accordion is a very earthy instrument. And again, because I've been doing this for a long time, like anybody, everybody has their own a talent, and they have developed that talent. This is what I do. So anybody can do this, but it requires perseverance, dedication, and just sitting down and doing it. And so I can do this fast.
There might be a bit more to it than that.
Well,
but I understand your point.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. But it sometimes it can be 10% creativity and 90%.
I understand.
Work.
Okay, without the click track,
here we go.
Let's hear our big mega production here today.
All right. Yes. Something bad's going to happen.
Well, that whole video with John Campbell, you heard just a portion of it just now, can be seen on our website, firstpersoninterview.com. John, that was a lot of fun that day, and you were so creative to do that on the spot.
It was my
like that.
pleasure.
Thank you
It's always
doing
fun, to take a quick idea and just run with it. We talking about music in a minute.
John, thank you for your time. Everybody is given spiritual gifts. Yours definitely is in this arena of music.
Well, I think I want to encourage those people that think what I do is, there's just amazing gift and I could never do that. But I got to tell you, part of this gift requires work. There are times when I'm writing music when it's 10% creative and 90% work. The other thing is, everybody has a gift. It might not be music. It might be in another area. But I would encourage everyone to embrace the gift that God has given them wholeheartedly, because that is a huge part of who you are. And it's also a huge reason why we're on this earth today, to share the gospel through our gifts. We are, I feel like I'm just one part of a whole. And I don't take it, any more than that. I'm humbled by the gift. I don't want to ever, feel as if I'm better than anybody else, because I'm certainly not. This is just something that the Lord gave me, and I'm proud to share it with everybody who will listen.
I love that attitude from John Campbell, our guest here on First Person. Now, you heard John in action today as we shared part of the soundtrack of that video. Well, the whole video can be viewed on our website. It's great fun to see John creating music, and I think you'll enjoy watching. Go to firstpersoninterview.com and share the link and YouTube video with others. This First Person program is made possible by the Far East Broadcasting Company, who creatively proclaims the gospel in nearly 50 countries of the world by means of radio and new technologies. Your support of FEBC means a lot to us here, even as we support it with our own prayers and gifts. To learn more and to request a free 30-day online devotional featuring listener stories and scripture, follow the links at firstpersoninterview.com. Now, with thanks to my friend and producer Joe Carlson, I'm Wayne Shepherd, inviting you back for First Person.